Breaking news coming into our Court TV newsroom. Buster Murdaugh is speaking out, asking to be left alone following his father's murder conviction. The surviving Murdaugh son is specifically asking the media to stop speculating about his involvement in the 2015 death of Stephen Smith. Buster's statement reads, quote, "I've tried my best to ignore the vicious rumors about my involvement in Stephen Smith's tragic death that continue to be published in the media as I grieve over the brutal murders of my mother and brother. I love them so much and miss them terribly. I haven't spoken up until now because I want to live in private while I cope with their deaths and my father's incarceration. Before, during, and since my father's trial, I've been targeted and harassed by the media and followers of this story. This has gone on far too long. These baseless rumors of my involvement with Stephen and his death are false. I unequivocally deny any involvement in his death, and my heart goes out to the Smith family. I'm requesting that the media immediately stop publishing these defamatory comments and rumors about me," end quote. Several docuseries and articles have implied that Buster Murdaugh had a homosexual relationship with Stephen Smith before Smith was killed. The death was ruled a hit and run. Stephen Smith's family announced last week that his body will be exhumed following the reopening of the death probe by state authorities. Now, all of this comes following the conviction of Alec Murdaugh for the murders of his wife Maggie and his son Paul. Now, that happened, of course, earlier this month, and Murdaugh then sentenced to spend the rest of his life behind bars for those crimes. I want to bring back in my guests, forensic criminologist Dr. Laura Petler and attorney Joe Tamburino. Dr. Laura, tell us, behind the scenes, what might be going on in terms of the reopening of the death investigation into Stephen Smith's killing?
Sorry, Julie. So the death investigation into Stephen Smith is going to require his body to be exhumed. And anytime there's an exhumation involved with in a case like this, first of all that has to be documented very thoroughly, that all the steps are being taken to ensure that it's the right body that's being removed, so on and so forth. Then it goes for autopsy. So I don't know about the first autopsy and can't speak to that, but the second autopsy, a lot of that is going to depend on how well the body is preserved, how much information they can get post-exhumation. And I've been involved in cases like this where we've had to go back and look at victims who have been exhumed. And at autopsy, we're trying to take measurements, we're trying to take other information from the body that might not have been collected at the beginning, because that's really the only reason that you want to exhume a body. So from the standpoint of evidence on the body, that's that piece. The other pieces are the multidisciplinary aspects of this investigation, primarily the victimology. The victimology is oftentimes, it leads to the smoking gun of who would want to potentially hurt the victim and why that person would need to be dead in order for an offender to benefit. So looking into the victimology and really building that up, that would be the core of my investigation. And then I would use everything else to plug in and compare to the victimology, using that as the litmus test. And that's really going to get to the manner of death. That's going to solve for manner of death. Was it an accident, or is there some kind of foul play involved? So it's quite complex, and it will take a long time if it's done properly.
Well said, Dr. Laura. Thank you for that. Joe Tamburino, I would think investigators would want to talk to Alec Murdaugh about this. We know that he was one of the first people there at that crime scene, and why? Joe, what might that look like now that he's in state prison? You know, obviously going to continue fighting this case, continue with the appellate process, but how might that look if investigators want to talk to him?
Well, I would imagine he's not going to talk. I mean, right now, you know, he's presumably going to serve the rest of his life in prison. He's doing his appeal, but I don't see a reason why he would talk. Perhaps to make sure that his son is not implicated in this, perhaps. But if he doesn't have any information on it, I don't see why he would talk. However, the situation with Buster, here's what I'm wondering about. Yes, there's a lot of speculation that these two kids knew each other, but so far we've received no evidence of that. There's been no social media evidence, texting, emailing, nothing like that. You know, the death happened in 2015. That wasn't that long ago. Of course, we had Facebook by then. Of course, we had many ways that young people communicate with each other. So we really don't even know if these. So I think a lot of information needs to come out on that issue.
Appreciate it, Joe. We'll leave it there for now, but of course we're going to continue following any developments we hear in the death investigation to Stephen Smith's death.